All right, today's lesson, we're going to talk about the middle colonies right in here. Mainly New York and Pennsylvania. We've already covered the New England colonies, where people came for religious freedom. And we covered the southern colonies, which were the oldest colonies, which developed a lot of agriculture and farming. So let's talk about the middle colonies. At the heart of the middle colonies is the port of New York, which started out as the port of New Amsterdam, an ideal place for trade. The wide Hudson River comes in from the inland into the ocean there, protected by Long Island. The bay or the opening between the Hudson River and the sea is very protected. Perfect place for caravels to be protected from storms. Perfect place for river barges bringing goods from the inland to come into. A nice flat area that will become Manhattan eventually will be settled by the Dutch, and it quickly becomes a growing city full of commerce, religious tolerance, and people from all over the world, much like New York is in many ways today. The British saw the success of the Dutch colony of New Amsterdam. They wanted it, so they used their power to take it from the Dutch. They used some warships, put them in New York Harbor, threatened New York, and the Dutch had no answer but to give up the area. The British take it over and name it after the Duke of York, and it becomes New York and becomes a great location for trade and the foundation of the New York colony, which of course will eventually become the state of New York. But New York will be the perfect place for trade and commerce, and still today, many hundreds of years later, it is still one of the most important trading areas and centers of commerce in the entire world. Pennsylvania, founded by William Penn. You might have seen his picture on the Quaker Oats. He receives a charter to settle a colony that will become Pennsylvania. It is a peaceful colony settled by Quakers. The Quakers are way ahead of their time. They supported nonviolence, equality, religious tolerance, and they mean true equality, equality between all races and all people, men and women as well. These are ideas that are way ahead of their time in the 1600s, and will make Pennsylvania a very successful colony. Also in Pennsylvania, they had an elected assembly. They're, of course, still under the power of the king, but locally they had an elected assembly. They limited the power of their representatives, and they used a representative democracy to govern and make laws. These are all ideas that will be foundations of the United States. So Pennsylvania has a huge impact on the United States. Here's Pennsylvania. It's a large area from the rivers and ports heading towards the ocean here all the way into the mountains in the back country. Pennsylvania had a lot of space and a lot of opportunity for everyone. The economy in the middle colonies was based on a variety of things. They grew crops, but they were staple crops, crops that were needed for eating instead of cash crops. There were some slaves in the middle colonies, but not as many as were in the southern colonies. Women start making textiles. We'll get that in. We'll talk about that more in the future. And there's just a lot of trade. And, you think about New York, and then Philadelphia means centers of trade. And so the middle colonies, a lot of commerce, a lot of trade, a lot of staple crops, and a lot of ideas that will end up inspiring the United States when you think about the ideas of religious tolerance, freedom that come from New York, and the idea of representative democracy used within Pennsylvania. All right, that will wrap up today's lesson. I hope it was helpful. Thanks.